Hi, in this video we will get to know what command line arguments are. Basically, a command line argument program is a program that is meant to be executed from the command line, and that is by uh, inputting there the arguments that our program is going to receive in order to operate uh, and perform some operations. So say for instance here that we have our command prompt from our operating system, and we will input uh, the name of the program that we want to execute and the arguments that we will pass to that program. So for that purpose we will use the complete implementation of the main functions of the main function which we haven't used along this video series, and it basically takes two arguments. The first one is an integer, which argc, which is the argument counter. It will count how many arguments did we input in the terminal. And the second one is an array of pointer to integers, to characters, which will store uh, the arguments as strings. Okay, so remember where input we are going to input data from our keyboard using ASCII characters. So like in this case, this example, here's the path or um, for our program. So we invoked first of all the name of our program, and then we separate by spaces the arguments that we are going to pass to that program. In this case, I'm calling the program name code, and then the first argument is this string hello, then the string friends, and so on and so forth. So basically those programs are made to be controlled from the command line of our operating system in order to manipulate the operations that that program is going to perform. So as you can see here, we have a path to a command line program of Windows operating system, which is checkdisk, and we are passing two arguments to it, which are /f and /r. So when we do that and hit the enter key, we will have these arguments here separated by blank spaces counted by this argc. Okay, so it will count one argument, two arguments, three arguments. Okay, and they will be stored in this array argb, the argument vector, as strings. So it will store the string of checkdisk, this /f, and so on and so forth. So let's see how they are implemented, how they operate in memory. The first integer argc, it's basically the counter of the arguments. Okay, so in this case, as I told you, it will count three arguments. So its current value will be 3. The next one is argv, the argument vector. So remember that it is a pointer, it is an array of pointers to characters. So we will have the following. Remember that the name of an array is a pointer to the first location of that array. So it is pointing to that array of character, okay, pointers. So we have here an array which stores pointers to character. So what's the pointer to character in the first location? Is a pointer pointing to the string of the first argument, which is in this case checkdisk. Okay, so argument 1, in this case the location number 1, will be for argument 1, which is /f, just like in here, and so on and so forth, depending on how many arguments I input from the command line. Okay, so there is also a different notation for that argument argv, and is this double pointer to char. Remember that internally in C programming language, arrays are treated as pointers, so I can replace this notation of array to this one of with a pointer. Okay, so this is why we have this double pointer to char, or we can also have this one. So remember that it's basically the first this one, which is a pointer to the first position of the character array, and in this array of pointers to characters, uh, I am pointing to the actual string. So I have like 1 and 2 pointers before the actual string. This is why it is noted here as a double pointer to char. So you can use both notations. There are two essential things to work with command line arguments. The first one is since uh, each of the arguments are separated by a blank space, what happens if we wanted to associate two separate strings as a one single argument? We will see one example of this. And basically what we do is to use double quotation to associate several strings just as a single argument. It means that these two strings will be stored in the same single location of the argument vector as one single data unit. Okay, so let's suppose that I want to execute this record command line program, and I'm going to input data of students. So for that purpose, I will need to associate the name, the full name, by associating two strings, in this case, Alice Michaels, which are separated by this blank space. So in order um, to force them to be taken as one single argument, I will use this double quotation here, okay? So now they are going to be stored in a position of the argument vector, but both as a single string, okay? Including this blank space in between. So the second one is to make conversions whenever I'm using numeric input. So this 25 here is actually two characters of the digits 2 and 5. So in order to make them available as a numeric type in order to perform arithmetic operations, this has to be converted to an integer in this case. So for that purpose, I will include the stdlib.h file, header file, which contains these three functions to be used: atoy, atof, and atol. They are used to convert from ASCII to integer, ASCII to type double or a floating point number, and atol to convert to a long integer. So in this case, I will use for operate for the age, which is in this case 25. I will create an integer and I will call the atoy function from ASCII to integer, and I will take as an argument the second argument here, actually the third argument, which is named argument 2. So I will convert that argument to 25 from string to integer. So it will take the value of 15, and this will be usable for arithmetic operations if I want it. Also, this average, which is a floating point number, I will use a double type, which is the best for this case, and we'll use the atof function. So I will convert this argument vector position 3, this one in this case, to convert from uh, this string to the actual floating point number 4.8. Okay, so this is basically what you have to bear in mind while working with command line arguments. They are taken as strings no matter what. So if you are using them as strings, just leave it that way. But if you have to convert it to numeric values, use that conversions with that functions, and also use this double quotation to associate a large string into a single argument. So now let's do some practice code. Alright, let's now do our practice code, but first of all, I guess I didn't emphasize much this, but remember that the name of the program will be stored in the first position of the argument vector, that is in the argv0 index, okay? So in order to get the parameters that I'm passing to that program, I will have to use the position of argument 1 for the first argument, then argument 2 for the second one, okay? Remember that in the first position we will have the name of the program, because we are going to call it in this way from the command line prompt. First of all, the name of our program, and then the rest of the arguments. Okay, I'm going to use here this header files, stdlib for conversion from characters to numeric types, and string to copy strings. And I have created this struct student here, which will contain the age, the average of scores, and also the name, okay, as an array of characters. Here's the implementation of main int rgc and argv. I create a struct John of the type student, and okay, I will show you how to use this environment online. Here you click input to get the command line arguments, or if you have this black screen here, place your cursor there, hit enter, and you will have here command line arguments box. Here we are not introducing the name of the program, because this is how this thing works here. So we will input the arguments, the rest of the arguments, okay, except for the name of the program. So I will introduce the age, the average, and the name, and in double quotation to associate these three strings, okay, the full name. So let's start. Let's fill John age with where I'm going to find the age. This is the first argument here, which will be argv1, okay? Remember that there is an error because argv wherever name it's a string. So in this case here it has the characters of the digit 2 and 0, okay? But it is not its numeric representation. So it will throw an error because I'm trying to store the value of a string inside an int, which is age. So for that purpose, I will use a toy function, and then I will pass argument 1 as the operator. So it will convert string argument 1 to its numeric type, which is 20. And I will print it here, okay? John.age, okay? It is okay now, as you can see. No errors. So we'll do the same for the average. Except that we are now using the atof function, that is ASCII to floating point number, and it will return a type double. So I will use, remember, in this case, argument 2. Let's see these common arguments. The second argument, oh, I messed it up. Okay, now it's 4.5. Let's click run. It's not printing because I didn't use this long float specifier and avg. Let's hit run. As you can see here, it's everything okay. And now I'm going to get the name. Let's hit enter here, and here is the name. So the third argument is the name. For that purpose, I will have to use, remember, strcopy to copy strings, and the destination will be john.name, and we will take the source as argument vector in the position 3. Okay, parentheses, and let's print it. String specifier and name. Let's hit run, and yeah, you can see here this one. Now let's try it in depth C. Alright, now let's do some variations on this program. Now I'm going to use the same structure and command line arguments, but now I'm going to write them into a file. Okay, so we will call the function fopen, and we will create a pointer to a file. Remember that it will need two arguments of type constant char, and now I will use the fprintf function to print the contents to that file. Okay, and at the end I will close the file. So my command line will look like this. This will be the name of my program, cmd line. Then I will specify in the first argument the name of the file, and then the rest of the data, just like before, the age, average, and the name. Okay, so now since all of these arguments are treated as strings, I will take this first argument here to replace the name of my file. So it will be argument vector 1. Remember that this is argument vector 0, the name of our program. So this is argument vector in the index 1. So okay, now I'm going to get also argument, this is the argument 0, the 1, 2, the argument 2 for the age, then the third argument for the average, and the fourth argument for the name. Okay, and remember now, since this is a string, I don't need to use the double quotation marks here, and we will use the function fprintf, and we will pass these following arguments: the file, which is the file opened here, the format, which I'm telling it to write to that file, and the actual data. And at the end I close the file. Okay, so let's hit run. It will show nothing because no arguments were passed. And now we will use cmd. We'll have to change directory with cd space documents, which is where I stored my my program here, cmd line. So now I use cmd line, and the arguments will be let's say record.txt. Remember that this will be my file name, and then the age, average, and the name. Let's say John Doe, and now let's hit enter. Okay, it is supposed to write a file named record.txt with this data, and the location for that file will be the same as the same folder in which my command line program is stored, in this case documents. This is my native language, so this is why my operating system is in Spanish. Here we have the record, and if we open that, we will see what we expected, what we introduced by the command line. Okay. Alright, now I'll do the last change to this program to show you how to get that file in wherever location that you want. I could have done here something to specify the path. Remember, with this double backslashes for each folder, and specify the path that I want my file to be created, okay? But remember that I will have to take the name of the file from the argument one passed for this command line arguments program that I did, okay? So for that purpose, I will have to use um, the following function that I guess is very useful, and it's called sprintf. Basically, sprintf will concatenate two strings according to the format that is specified here. So I specify the format that I want, in this case a string followed by the string with no spaces in between or anything else, and I will pass the two strings here in these positions of the argument, and whenever it concatenates the two strings according to this format, it will store this new string into string into an array of characters. Okay, so I will have to create an array of characters which will be the destination of that concatenation, and then the two strings that I want to concatenate, and the format if I want something in between or not or whatever. So in this case I will concatenate the name of the file in the command line to this path here, okay? I will include these downloads in this case because I want to show you that it's not the same folder document. So let's do this thing. Let's place these things here. The array of characters here, and then the sprintf will have to be here because I am getting the arguments. Okay. So remember that the result will be stored back in path. Okay, so for that purpose I will have to use, instead of this path here, I will use just the name path, which is of type pointer to character, okay, another string, so there won't be any problem with the data type here, which is a string. Okay, so I'm basically taking the command line wherever the user specifies in the command line as the argument one, which will be concatenated to this path, which is in downloads. Okay, remember to use these double backslashes because argument one will be placed here. Like say that I specify text.txt, so this will be the entire path. Okay, now I'm going to remove this and keep those backslashes. Okay, so basically take all the arguments and use this sprintf to concatenate this to this location downloads and the number of the file specified in command line, and then go ahead and open with that parameters, okay, in this location and with that name of file, and then proceed as just like before. So let's click run here to compile. It will show nothing. Then we go to command line cmd, then change directory documents, which is where my file is stored, cmd line, and let's specify here let's say new student .txt, and now let's enter the age, average, and the name. Let's say Sarah Johnson, and let's hit enter. Now it is supposed to be written in the downloads folder. Go here and it says new student. Okay, Let's open and see that it stored the data. One more thing I forgot to mention is that we haven't used this argc, which is the integer that counts the number of arguments. So we can use it in our code as follows: to check the number of arguments and check if uh, the command line has entered the appropriate number of arguments. So I will proceed to do all the same operations just like before, but now I'm going to use this if conditional and we'll check if argc is equal to 5, because we need 5 arguments. We need the name of our program, which is cmd line, then file, and then these other 3. Okay, so we will need 5 arguments. So in case my argument count it's not 5, um, I will not perform this operation, but instead else I will print this message: wrong number of arguments. So only when we have these 5 arguments we will proceed and do these operations. Okay, so let's click run to compile, and as you can see it already wrote wrong number of arguments, and it is because it's being executed here but with no arguments from the command line. So now I go to cmd, change directory, documents, and cmd line, and let's say now file.txt, then age, average, name, let's say John Doe. Okay, I guess I have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Okay, no problem. But what if I do now cmd line with just I don't know, out.txt? I'm missing 3 arguments, so let's hit enter. Wrong number of arguments. Okay, for the first execution I guess we have here file. Okay, so this is just what I wanted to show you. You can use also argc to check the number of arguments that command line operation has.